Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello.
Good night.
Can you hear us?
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
No, I can't hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. No, I can't. Yes, why can't I hear them? Hello? No.
Hi.
Ah, I can hear them now. Ah, I got them. Okay, all right, okay, all right. Okay. We had some technical difficulties, but now we're back. Okay, I need some assistance. Can someone send me the questions for the assignment, upcoming assignment? Hello?
I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Okay, if you could send it to me. How was the first assignment?
Well, I think we all waiting to see.
I agree.
Because you know, what I mean, I'm sure we all perform to the best of our ability. So we waiting to see how this is graded so we can know.
I
This
did
waiting
my
period is not a good
part.
feeling.
Yes, why is the wait period so long? Because the
This period is
results
not a good
aren't released
feeling.
until May 13th.
Well, they have to be marked and cross-marked, and we are not the only jurisdiction. So there
Wow,
are,
I guess it's almost weird since like we're starting and then we'll probably start our second assignment without like any feedback yet, but
no,
I guess such is life.
yeah, just be prepared for the last one, because when you get the last one, they expect you to have picked up on all of the notes that they would have sent.
I was going to ask you if they provide feedback on where we fell down.
Yes, they will.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm. Okay. I see one student sends her apology. Okay. Okay, so someone sent me the question. Have you started the question?
No.
Negative.
Why?
I mean, I've read over it and started to put points together and my thoughts together, but to say I
I've got it.
start typing everything out, no.
I've only have an introduction so far and gathered
And I've
research.
done the same thing. Just looked at it, put some stuff together, but not actually started doing the paper.
Oh, okay. All right. Put some stuff together. I don't know what that means.
Meaning you already read the question, so you're starting to put your thoughts together in regards to what direction you're going to go with it and know what you're
Okay.
researching.
All right. That sounds
Start a
that
document
sounds
and
good.
start typing, no.
Okay. No. I wouldn't have expected you to start typing, but you sound like you're on the right track. If you've read it and put down the key points and you know exactly what the examiner is asking you for.
Yes.
Because you don't want to write a whole paper and you're not answering the question. Okay, who found assignment 2, so you can send it to me?
Oh, I dropped it in the chat. You didn't see it?
No, hold on. Let me go
Look
back.
in this chat right here.
Oh, I see it.
Okay.
No, this is asking me to save rather than open. Why is it doing that? Save. Okay, so let me go to my desktop. All right, so tonight we're supposed to cover Unit 7, which is on concepts of risk management. Who read it? That's all, Miss.
I started. I've started.
I'll be
Got
the
it?
first to admit that I did not read.
Okay, answer all the questions. Why y'all laughing?
I honestly thought class started next week. I only missed and pulled up the schedule this afternoon. And I realized it was today, honestly.
Okay, well, I won't keep you long because,
Oh, whew.
no, I don't keep, okay, so I don't keep classes long because I expect you to read before you come,
Mhm.
okay? And how I normally present the class is we use the upcoming assignment as a
Okay.
guide for our topics.
Okay.
So A says 30 points, 30 points. Okay, so A says countries should identify, assess, and understand the money laundering and terrorist financing risk for the country and should take action, including designating an authority or mechanism to coordinate actions to assess risks and apply resources aimed at ensuring the risks are mitigated effectively. It's a very long sentence. Based on that assessment, countries should apply a risk-based approach to ensure that measures to prevent or mitigate money laundering are commensurate with the risk identified. Okay, that's A, that's a statement. In the context of the FATF statement and recommendation 1, explain the benefits and challenges associated with the implementation of a risk-based approach. And 2, what factors should be taken into account in applying a risk-based approach in a specific firm, and what process should be followed when applying the risk-based approach. Okay, your thoughts? Anybody, your thoughts? If you've been thinking, tell me what this question, how you gonna approach it?
Okay, I'll take a shot at the first part of it, where to speak about the benefits of and challenges of the risk-based approach. The benefits of a risk-based approach to me are it's not a one-size-fits-all concept. The risk-based approach is geared towards the specific risk relating to your business. So, in other words, an insurance company's risk will be different from that of a bank. And so the
Right.
risk-based approach allows the bank to, I guess, put a framework in place using a risk-based approach based on their specific risk. And the benefits of that to me is that I guess it's more comprehensive, it's more detailed, it's more tailored for the company. The challenges, though, could be that some things may be overlooked. I don't know. I can't speak to the challenges. I don't know.
Okay. Let me see at the very beginning, what did they say you needed to? Okay, so you're gonna choose the Bahamas as a jurisdiction.
Yes.
Anybody else want to comment? These questions are heavily weighted.
You would have to also, a big thing with risk is of course assessing the risk. So you could touch on that. You have to evaluate and assess the risk.
Uh-huh. I listening. Anybody else? It's just 20-something people on, so you should have some thoughts. Everybody had to write their own paper, but it's very good when you start to brainstorm so you could understand what the question, what the examiner is actually asking of you.
To piggyback of that, it's like what risk, it lets a company know what risks or somewhat gauge it to know what risks they are taking on with every client.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
So
I guess
basically,
Go ahead.
I guess
So
a child.
go on, go ahead, sorry.
You finish first.
I was saying, I guess a challenge would be with the risk-based approach would be when I say maintaining it, I support like to keep up with it. Like high-risk clients, you have so much high-risk clients, so now you have to follow up once you onboard those clients. I'm saying that from a banking perspective.
Uh-huh.
So that would be a challenge now, because I guess you would need a unit in itself to like deal with the high-risk clients.
Okay.
You'd have to
But-
review them more than the other ones.
But from all of you, I still don't understand. I still don't get it, a clear view as how you are going to approach this question. Okay,
I guess you would,
Well-
I would say that you would approach it by first
Stating what the
explaining first what a risk-based approach is, generally what it means in the industry, and then talk about or explain the benefits of such an approach in an organization, and then the challenges that organizations may face by implementing it.
And then also speak on the challenges an organization would face if they have a weak risk-based approach, the consequences, which would prove why it's so needed.
Okay, if you go to A, what are they trying to say in A? What are they telling you?
They're explaining what
They're telling us to
recommendation
apply
is.
a risk-based approach.
Uh-huh.
And they're telling us what the approach should include. It should identify, assess, and understand money laundering and terrorist financing risks.
Mm-hmm. Nobody hit on it yet.
It's also
Okay.
telling you to have a body in place, like the MLRO or compliance department, who would do the assessment of the risk.
More than that. More than that.
What am I missing? What am I missing, Joey?
Look, I'm reading it again. Sorry.
Read it again.
I guess
I
it's saying
think-
based on the once you would have completed an assessment, based on your assessment, you should be able to look at ways on how to address it, how to address the issues that you have based on your respective industry or department or unit also.
You've gone too far. Just before
Does
you
it
even
have-
get, go ahead.
Does it have
Yeah, the
anything
first-
to do with the authoritative part of it? So like,
What do you
pardon?
mean? What do you mean?
So it's based on the particular country, like let's say the Bahamas, like who's responsible for being in charge of making sure that a risk-based approach is in place, like above everything else. You may have one for the firm or whatever, you may have your own inside your own office, but who in that country is responsible for ensuring that measures are in place to mitigate those things?
Getting warmer.
Should we be looking at the national risk assessment?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
That's where you start from.
Sorry, what's that?
The national risk assessment.
I think the key word is implementation based on the country that you're choosing.
And that country has to be the Bahamas. That's where you live. That's where you
Right.
operate.
As it would differ from another country.
Yes.
So I guess they want to know what the challenge would be pertaining to that country, what set rules and regulations that they have that would pose benefit and challenges with implementation.
So it says countries should identify, assess, and understand the money laundering and terrorist financing risk for the country. So that's what the National Risk Assessment Report was all about. And the country should take action, including designating an authority or mechanism to coordinate actions to assess risk. So you have to talk about the National Risk Assessment, and then you have to speak about the mechanism or the authority.
The bodies that are in charge. Mhm.
Right, whatever entity it is that you're writing about.
Exactly.
Right. That's your starting point. And apply resources aimed at ensuring the risks are mitigated effectively. So applying resources means what?
What actions they took?
No, they actually put actions first. They said the mechanism to coordinate the actions to assess the risk. What did the country do at that level to coordinate the actions to assess the risk?
Adjust laws.
Implemented regulations and policies.
And
laws.
what else? See, now you have to do your research. Because you have to look and see, what did the Bahamas do? I know they issue a lot of questionnaires, they do a lot of surveys. I think even as recently as today, they would have sent out another set of surveys because they didn't get responses on a particular sector that is a high-risk sector in the overall money laundering risk assessment. So
who would they send the questionnaires and surveys to? Different?
Right, different sectors. It depends on, right, it depends on where the product or the service is geared to, whatever the risk is that they have identified, they gear it towards that sector.
Okay.
So the first thing you need to do is you have to be able to familiarize yourself where we are as a country in identifying and assessing our money laundering and terrorist financing risk. What actions did we take? What mechanisms did they put in place to address these risks? Do they have the adequate resources and how they delegated these risks around to each regulator to deal with? And how do they ensure that these risks are mitigated? So they say, based on that assessment, countries should apply a risk-based approach. So the risk-based approach in the Bahamas is based upon the national risk assessment and then the instructions that come from the particular authority. So you then have to decide, after you've done that research, you have to decide, okay, this is the sector that I'm going to write on. What have they done? And how are the measures that they have put in place connected to the findings from the national risk assessment? Because that is going to be your core basis before you answer A1 and A2. Because remember, when you write an AML response, it has to flow. And the examiner has to see that you know all of the particulars relating to money laundering and terrorist financing from the very core. They do not want answers from the top. They want to see that you understand from the very beginning how this information flows. So in a country, you have a national risk assessment. Then you have regulators. Then you have the individual firms. But before you even do the national risk assessment, the overall framework for money laundering is the FATF recommendations. So you're now in the getting ready to do your second assignment. So it is expected that you would have already read all of those recommendations. So do I have a confirmation that you have read it, skimmed it, halfway through it?
Read some of it,
Yes.
most of it,
Okay.
and skimmed the
Yeah,
rest.
read some.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
each country has to make sure that they have legislation, they have processes and procedures in place and structures in place in order to meet the requirements of the FATF recommendations. So A1 says, in the context of the FATF statement and recommendation 1, you must know what that statement is. And you must also know what the interpretive notes to recommendation 1 says. Then it says, explain the benefits and the challenges associated with the implementation of a risk-based approach. What do you think they're asking you for? This is worth 30 points. What do you think they're asking you for?
I think ways in which it is effective and ineffective.
And also like once ways that are, well, the cons of it or the challenges of it, what do you think we can do to, I guess, improve the challenges or try to address them?
Okay, when you read these questions, be very careful of the words. Now, in A1, it says here, in the context of statement 1. Now, they've already given you a quotation at the very top. What do you think they mean when they say in the context of? What does that mean to you?
Refer to that
You need to
particular
refer
statement.
to that recommendation. To apply
Okay.
it.
As it relates to?
As it relates to the quotation above.
Quotation, right?
Okay, so now you have to tie that into the quotation. And then it gives you an action word. It says explain. The benefits and the challenges. And the next key word is implementation. So how do you go about implementing a risk-based approach? So what does recommendation 1 state? Anyone looked up recommendation 1?
It speaks to countries identifying, yeah,
And then applying a risk-based approach.
associated with the money laundering. And the actions that, and states that they need to take action to make sure that they act, they could assess the risks involved with them.
Okay, so I know some of you said at the very beginning that you had already read it, you have some thoughts. So now that we've gone through A1, do you now understand what they're asking you to write? Were you on the right track?
For the most part, yes, because I just pretty much was focusing on the recommendation 1 itself, seeing that that's what it had to be based on. So I took a few pointers. So once I started to put the pen to paper, now I know which direction to go in.
Okay. So they're asking you for recommendation 1, explain the benefits and the challenges for the implementation of a risk-based approach. Now, you know, here in the Bahamas, we've already gone far and beyond that. Everyone has implemented it already. So the examiner expecting you to give them examples of benefit and challenges that we would have had in implementing recommendation 1, bearing in mind the national risk assessment and the structure that was put in place, which includes the changing of the legislation in order to further comply with all of the amendments to the FATF recommendations. So that is a very succinct question that they're looking for. So how it is to be written is the first part gives the examiner at the very beginning a picture of where we are in terms of identifying our risk on a national level and what we're doing in a specific authority. And then they want you to say, what were the benefits? Explain the benefits and the challenges that were faced in meeting that recommendation 1 at a country level and as an individual firm. Added into that, what the authority faced. So it's more or less like a fact-finding for the examiners.
Yep.
And they want to see how well you understand how all of these recommendation or authorities, how they all come together as one goal. Another thing I normally do is I normally ask someone in the class to take the question and divide as to how many words you need for each question. Can someone do that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So for A1, how many words you need?
1,050 max.
1,015?
1,050 max for both A1 and A2, and 700 for B1 and B2.
Say again for me, please.
1,050 for A1 and A2, and 700 for B1 and B2.
Okay.
That's 700 a piece or 700 for B,
No,
for
for
B
both.
altogether?
700 per piece for B1 and B2.
Okay.
So it should be 1,400 altogether for B, and 2,100 for for A.
So you said 1,050 for A1 and A2 each.
Yes, and 700 for B1 and B2 each.
700 each.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
Should have a total of 3,500 words altogether.
Yeah, all together. That 3,000 to 3,500. Okay. So A2 says, what factors should be taken into account in applying the risk-based approach in a specific firm? So see, now you're going firm-based. And what process should be followed when applying the risk-based approach? 30 points. So just these 2 questions alone, if not answered properly, can amount to failure. So what factors should be taken into account in applying a risk-based approach?
The nature of the business, the countries in which it operates, its customer base, the channels through which it conducts business, and its general risk assessment processes.
Okay.
Also, if its products and services could be used for money laundering or terrorist financing, would be another factor to consider.
What about policies in place and
Also
enhanced
the-
diligence?
The culture of the organization as well.
But they have culture in B. If you want to top culture, you can tack it in at the very end. Who's read unit 8? Anyone read unit 8? Unit 8 is about implementing a risk-based approach.
Gotta read that.
So unit 7 speaks about risk itself and being able to understand what is risk, how do you identify it, how do you evaluate it, analyze it, how do you treat it, how do you go about conducting a risk assessment. But when you talk about the risk-based approach, the risk-based approach goes beyond that. It is looking at how the board and senior management identify and assess risk. How do they mitigate it and how do they monitor it? So the first thing you have to be able to identify is what are the factors that a firm would look at when they are applying a risk-based approach. And you have to
is concentration risk, reputational risk, legal risk stuff, regulatory risk.
yeah, those are some of the risks. But before you answer the question, A2, you need to determine what is the firm that you're going to be referring to. Is it banking? Is it insurance? Is it securities? Is it money lending? You have to be able to identify that first. And remember, whenever you're dealing with anything with risk-based approach, everything is based on the size, the nature, and the complexity of the firm. That's always your starting point. I can tell you right now, A2 is a question that's normally not answered very well.
A2 is a question of what, sorry?
I said A2 is normally a question that's not answered very well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Can you say why?
Because you have, what does a risk-based approach mean?
Is it a
Basically,
framework? Is it a
Go ahead.
frame? Oh, is it
Go
the
ahead.
framework that a firm uses to mitigate a risk?
Yes.
And
Or the
I was
structure?
saying, go ahead, sorry, Sanders.
No, you can go. I'm finished.
I'm saying that the company identifies the, I guess, the most vulnerable risk or highest risk in their company, and they put a plan to mitigate that risk.
Mhm. Okay, let me give you another warning. Be very careful of the words that you use. There is inherent risk, then there is residual risk. So when you read the chapters, notice the words that are written. When you finish doing money laundering and you move into the other part of the program, the wording will change again. So you have to use money laundering, terrorist financing language when you answer these questions. So they only asking you for is the factors, and they ask you for the process. And they don't want it verbatim. So it shouldn't sound like a book.
Sorry, you went out. They don't want me what, sorry?
They don't want you to answer the question verbatim. And it shouldn't sound like a book. The examiner, when he reads it, it has to give him, he has to have that feeling that you understand what is a risk-based approach. So it shouldn't sound like a textbook or a textbook answer.
So Archie said factors, and what's the next one was?
Factors and process. Those
Okay.
are the two key words in A2. What factors should be taken into account when in applying a risk-based approach in a firm, and what process should be followed when applying the risk-based approach. Two words, factors and process. And for 30 points, whatever factors and process that you state, you should be able to explain those in plain English using AML terms.
I see my current dipping, so I don't know if maybe she lost her connection.
Yeah. My electricity dipped just
Yeah, I
now.
lost
I
my
Yeah,
I
mine
don't know what
too.
going down.
Yeah, my own
Mine
just
too.
dipped. I saw the light flicker, so I know what's coming.
Something's coming. I don't know. I'm in the east.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened. Just my own shut out just now.
Yeah.
I'm in the West. I'm
Mine
pretty.
zip and I in the West.
Y'all kind of got off.
It sounds
I
like
read-
it's on Island
Yeah,
I read
think
by
it's
DPL.
island-wide.
I must say that's one thing I don't miss about Nassau.
Wide.
We don't have that much here.
Show off, show off.
Kudos to everybody who read. I gotta be honest. I haven't looked at anything ICA since I submitted my first research paper. So
I glanced.
Red?
Right,
You thought
Deceiver?
class started next week?
I finally got through unit 7.
I mean, mind you, I had all these big plans, you know, oh yeah, I can work on it. No.
Boy, epic failure.
We
I
jump
needed
into
that
this.
break.
We jump into these questions. I get anxiety right now. Thinking it's due next. I thinking it's due next week. Like, hold on.
I thought this was easy. Jeez.
Yeah,
Yeah,
y'all.
when she started to explain the approach, I was like, oh, I was thinking something a little different.
Yeah, I complete 180 from where I was. Because I looked at it, it looked pretty simple, but she.
So we thought we have to pay attention to those keywords.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she changed it a whole totally different.
I get anxiety right now.
Where did she go?
Her
Maybe-
electricity may have cut out altogether. In her
Exactly what it is, because right after my own dipped, I saw where it said that she is now the host. That means she lost connection and was trying to come back on.
It looks like Biff's went down too.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, I don't even see
I don't
any
see
this
this.
on.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is good.
And it's still saying recording.
Yep, pretty much. That's because someone else is not. Oh, I'm the host now.
She give me a whole new meaning right now, of course, this question.
Sessions being recorded.
Yeah.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Oh,
Yes.
Hi.
Great, you're back. Woo!
That light dipped and that was it. The whole
Yep,
computer
we
just
saw
went
that.
black. Oh, and I had to wait for it as it spool around and around. Okay, let's get back. All right, so now you understand what A2 means, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I'm gonna push you all hard. Next class, we will do chapter 8. But before we go there, let's look at B. So culture is like DNA. It shapes judgments, ethics, and behavior displayed at those moments, big or small, that matter for the performance and reputation of firms and the service that they provide to customers and clients. So quote, identify and assess the drivers of culture at a firm. Evaluate some of the cultural barriers to the establishment of a positive AML CTF culture within a firm. Oh, y'all should get 40 points easily. That's an easy one.
Pray tell.
What do you mean, pray tell? You're the one who said it when we were talking about something else, when we were doing A2, you said culture. So tell me, how you going to approach this?
I think the best way is maybe to use your work environment because you would know the culture best.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's your source. But how you going to answer the question?
Well, it's saying to
Well,
identify
it
and
asks
assess
you,
the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So you would, I guess, talk about what it is that creates a culture, that builds a culture in an in a work environment. And
Okay.
maybe the type of, and you probably could also touch on the type of culture that you like or that you would prefer.
Mm.
Or no, you could do that in part 2, where it says evaluate some of the cultural barriers to the establishment. So you probably could push that in there, you know, and speak about the type of culture that you would prefer, something like that. Because I'm sure you would want a positive environment, and this is talking about positive AML, CDF culture within a firm.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when you identify drivers, you would be given examples. So for example, I think one example would be like the tone at the top or the culture of the board.
Uh-huh.
And then of management.
Mm-hmm. The very first sentence, culture is like DNA. What do you think that means?
It's embedded within the company itself.
Yes, it runs through the veins of every organ within the organization.
Right, and that's what she was saying just now, I guess, in regards to the tone from the top, because whatever tone the top sets is what comes down to all of the other staff.
Okay, so then it says it shapes judgments, ethics, and behavior.
right, so you point out what's tolerated, not tolerated within your company.
Okay. And it says displayed at those moments, big or small, that matter for the performance and reputation of firms. So they're looking for examples.
I guess
Of
maybe
how-
that looking at
Go ahead.
examples of how serious or how important AML is within the firm.
No, the culture.
Or is it practice?
They want you to give them examples of a culture within your organization that displays, no matter what the incident, whether the incident was big or small, how that culture would have impacted your organization, its reputation or its performance.
The culture pertaining to AML standards.
Yeah, AML, yes, compliance with AML and terrorist financing. And it says there that it shapes judgments. So if the staff don't have the right mindset of knowing what to do or where to go or how they should treat a certain client, then of course it impacts the organization. So when you talking about identifying, assessing the drivers of a culture, then they're looking for you to talk about each component of the DNA in a firm.
You think corruption could be one as well?
It can, if you don't have a good culture. The tone comes from the top, and it depends on where you work.
Yeah, because one of the things I went to say was that culture, if you have a bad culture, it causes like reputational risk, legal risk, compliance risk. Like, can I tie it lightly into that as well?
Yes. And then it tells you in 2 to talk about the barriers, like what hinders a company from having a good, positive culture. You know, a lot of people that say it's not my job. I don't have to do this. But you know that the new legislation says that it's everybody's job and everybody can be fined.
I guess a barrier could be if the tone of the entity is more sales driven, like,
Yes.
they're all about the bottom line.
Yes. And then what they like is examples. They like examples. So you'll be able to give them examples. You get higher points.
Unless, Archer, you may have, let's say, board members who have a friend who wants to do a particular transaction, and they can call a manager and say, look here, just push this through.
Yes.
So, up to that seniority level can be a problem as well. And it could be a challenge when you try to challenge it because you're thinking you're going against, that level of authority.
Right.
You don't want to risk being ostracized or even your job. I mean, it may not get to that extent, but lower line staff, I think they're intimidated by things like that. So top management could be, even board level could be a problem.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of workplaces, when a board member calls for something to be done, your supervisor or manager is like, hey, drop what you're doing, deal with this. So that is definitely a barrier or a challenge.
Yes. And you can tie that right into corruption.
So basically, it's like how much power one person has in the company, as to say, signed off on certain things.
That could be one example.
Because I know, like in banking, you would find it that it's always two people involved. And I guess they do that to mitigate the risk of one person being corrupt.
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's more than two. You have to have different levels
Yeah.
for these validations, and in different departments sometimes as well.
Right. And then you can add into some of the barriers could be when even though they're saying evaluate some of the cultural barriers, also look at things that are common among Bahamians and how they do business.
Yes, that's it. That's my family. That's my friend. That's my boy.
So for instance, right? Because I work at a institution that is it's not a Bahamian institution, right? Let me just say that. And I found out that they outsource a lot of our approval process to units outside of the Bahamas. And I guess the back end of that is because of they're trying to like stop Bahamians from being corrupt, us calling over and saying, hey, approve this, approve that. Would that be an example?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a cultural barrier.
It's probably because we're so small net in the Bahamas.
Because we're very small, yes. So it's just like what we just been saying, everybody is friends, family, and lovers. And so to avoid all of that historically, that's why they had to move, they had to outsource a lot of things. Everybody knew everybody. And so this is my friend, and my friend wants to borrow $300,000. Yes, he only have 50,000 in the bank, but I lending it to him because he's my friend.
Oh, my friend.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, my friend wants to open up an account, but you want us to open this account, but then they're not coming with all of the documents that they should come with. Oh, they're going to bring it later, and sometimes later never comes.
I think on the flip side, it sort of protects the staff or the company. Well, I would say the staff, because for instance, me, like the person just spoke, oh, they don't bring in the sufficient documents. Oh, they want to borrow 300,000, but they only have 50,000. I can now, forgive me, pass the buck and say, it's not up to me. This has to go to Barbados or Trinidad or whatever for approval. And that will ensure that I have the relevant documents. And then two, so that my family member or my neighbor doesn't give me the evil eye. Well, oh, she could have done this for me, because they know it's not within my portfolio.
Even certain companies, they go to the extent now, like for us, we can't even, well, we could if they don't know, but if we're following protocols, we're not even supposed to do anything for family, friends, close-knit friends. So like
at my company, I ever know.
If we was to do, like if I was to run an application for one of my close friends and the application comes back with a discrepancy, let's say they did something, forged job letter or something. If that was found out that, hey, this is a friend of mine, then it's on me. So they want us to stop that.
Yeah. I had something cross my desk for someone with the same surname, and I have no idea who that person is. But just because they have the same surname, I pass it on because I don't want to be implicated just in case. I don't know who that person is. I don't know who their references were. I don't know anything about that person. But your surname is my surname. I can't take this on. I prefer to be careful.
Yeah, because most people are related, even though you don't know them, you're related somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's too small.
Yeah.
It's too small.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you what I want from you all. Before we meet next Thursday, I want your first outline on A1.
Woo!
Yes, I do.
Wait. I'm sorry.
You mean like the whole thing?
A1. I didn't say the whole, I didn't say A and B. I said A1.
Or just
Miss
A1?
Archie, how are you?
Huh?
How are you? Are you having a wonderful day?
A1. Because first, what I want to see is your style of writing.
Okay. A1.
That's the first thing. Because your style of writing plays a big part in answering the questions.
Okay.
So anyone you speak to who has had me before, they'll tell you that they would have written their paper at least 5 times before they submit it. Because I'll keep telling you to write it over if it makes no sense to me.
No, I like that though. I mean, I laughed. I'm shocked at the request, forgive me, but I like that. Because it forces me to not wait until
the last minute.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. Thank you.
And another thing about this is that when you finish this part of the program, it is expected whatever you come out with, whether you come out with a distinction, a merit, or pass, is expected that you know this material. And you can only know this material if you immerse yourself in it. This is not a discipline where you can sit at a desk and skim work. This is a function where you can go to jail. So you have to take it seriously. And you have to know this, not guess it. You have to know it. So I want you to take it seriously. So this one is this assignment is not hard. What's the third one on?
I haven't looked at the third one as yet, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so this one is not that hard. I don't know what the first one was, but this isn't hard.
I think the third one is.
Go ahead.
The first one was a roller coaster.
Really?
I think the third one is kind of, I skim it. I think they're kind of like asking you to be in place of an MLRO or compliance officer, and you have to like you're basically doing the job based on my understanding of it. Like I said, I skimmed it a couple weeks ago. So that one is a lot more harder, I think, than
because they're expecting, right. So they're expecting at when you get to that 3, that you've read everything. So when you look at this book to where we are now, 7, and next week we're gonna look at 8, because 8 is a part of answering A2. But all of the reference material that they have spoken of is expected that you would have been reading those along the way. The Wolfsburg statement, the Wolfsburg guidances, you should have already started to read those. The FCA principles from out of England, you should have read those. They assist you when you read the central bank or the Securities Commission guidelines. You see how expanded they are, and they cover a lot of gaps that is in our documents because they're more specific and prescriptive. And they fill the gaps when you finally go into the workplace. So that's what they're expecting you to do. If in your organization you have clients from other parts of the world, it is expected that you in turn would start to read their AML guidelines. So you know the requirements from different jurisdictions. An examiner could see that when you write. So that's how you move from just passing and getting a very good grade. Why the silence?
You taking it in?
Listening attentively.
No. This is where you all supposed to be at now. This is what is expected of you. So I tend to see that when you write. I need to see how you write. So I want A1. I want those emails to come in. So when we come next Thursday and we speak about A2 and how you're going to approach that draft, I should be able to give you some comments back on your style of writing. And then we move into putting some more meat on the bones in answering A1 and then setting out an outline for A2. Bearing in mind word count. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know time goes very quickly. It's Thursday. Thursday will be before you when you blink your eye. So you only have the weekend to get started. Because when you go to work Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, you don't have the time. So on the weekend, you need to sit down and start writing. So let's say you only get to write at least about 400 words. But I need to see how you write. And then you can, if you only get so far, then put the headings that you're going to, your subheadings, as to how you're going to address the rest of A1. Just so I can see your trend of thought, and then email it to me.
What's your email address, please?
My email address is right there. Then Miguel send the invite out. CM Archer.
I'm not on that email train, or I don't know what they call it. So
What, you're
can
not on
you
it? How you got the
no,
link?
ma'am. Someone in the class sent it to me. I started late. I think I joined the program late.
So when you send your paper, send me your email link so I can forward it to Miguel so he can add it on.
Okay.
Just don't forget. So those who
No,
are ready.
I'll put it in the body in the email.
Okay, so those who have already started looking at the question 8, I mean, y'all could be the first horses on the gate and start sending me your paper. And I can see what is what. And anybody who has 3, send 3. And hopefully, let me see, May. Well, I have you all in May when you get well. Whoever prepares you all for 3 before we can go over question 1. Because you said it was all over the place. They normally don't be all over the place.
Say again for me, please. What you say about
I-
question one?
Question one, remember you said was all over the place. I said they normally don't be all over the place.
The thing
I don't think
for
it was
me,
all
the
over the
question
place. I think
one is-
I think we just were overthinking, but I don't think it was all over the place. We
Okay,
just were scared.
no, you can't be
So-
scared. You have to
Yeah,
come-
because you don't know what to expect, and then you've heard that those
Yeah.
in the English markers, their standard is pretty high. So I've heard like if
You
you
write
get a
English?
60, that's almost like, you know, a 90 over here. Like government school versus private school grading.
Yeah, but they mark you down for slangs, punctuation marks, capitalization, all of that. That's why I say I want to see
See,
your
so that ain't even if my thing makes sense yet. That's literally the grammar issue is first, and then if it makes sense or cohesiveness and succinctness and stuff like that, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think this question is a lot more structured than assessment one. Assessment one was made up of different kinds of questions, like different areas I feel, but this one is a little bit more structured, like we're only talking about risk-based approach.
Okay, okay.
For
Mm.
me personally, I just want to see the grade because we sit and we submitted and we all submitted to the best that we were able to. And I'm hoping that we pass and we got good grades, but I don't think anyone here knows what to expect. Just whereas I might be sitting down thinking I got a 70% or 80%.
Yeah.
I could get something very different. So I would
Mhm.
feel better knowing, you know, what they would look. I mean, I read the questions, so I have an idea what they look for, but what their grading methods are like, you know, just to have an idea for going
They
forward.
mark hard.
Yeah, so around May 10th, 11th, 12th, I'm gonna
That's
be up all of
right.
them.
Yeah, that's only what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, and the nerves already coming. So
No, don't get nervous. I always tell students, don't get nervous. You've already submitted that. You need now to focus on number 2. Because if you get nervous, then you're not going to do well on 2. Focus on 2.
okay.
I think what helped me a little bit with assignment one was maybe I guess other persons in the class can try it. Find someone who's maybe an educator and find someone who works in compliance and have those 2 persons proofread your paper. They will give you 2 completely different perspectives. One will give you one on grammar and one will give you one on content. So that combination, it could be very helpful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you for the tip.
Yeah. All right, so I'm looking for how many papers am I looking for? 20, how many? How many of you in the class?
I think 30,
I think
31.
24 participants are on the call.
I think it was 30 or 31 on the email thread.
All right, so that's how many I'm looking for. What I don't like is the week before we finish, someone then decides to send me all. You know what I mean? For the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't work. It won't work like that. Because that's a lot of work to go through it. I know some people like to do things last minute. So even if you send it in once or twice and you get my feedback and you don't wish to send it in anymore, that's fine. But at least make an attempt and try. So next week we'll look at A2. And let's see how we will approach that. And after I give you the comments back from A1. But you need to start writing it. And we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm confused about the word count. Saying that we have 3 questions, wouldn't be simple just to divide it, the 3 question by the amount, the maximum amount, or?
No, because it said it should be
That's 4 questions.
based on the point value.
Oh, so how much words should be for the first one then? Let me write this down.
I think it was 2,100 for the first. That's A
No.
and 1 and
No.
2.
It's
Yeah.
1,050 for A1.
No, I meant a
1,000.
combination of both. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So A1 and A2 are equal points, and so that should be 2,100 total.
Okay.
Each question 1,050 words. 1,050 for A1, 1,050 for A2. So
Wonderful.
B1 and B2 is 700 each.
Great.
1,400 in total.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, beautiful.
So that's step one. Now, step two now is for you to do your research on the national risk assessment and the regulatory implementations, and then answer A1. Any more questions?
Okay, that was the national risk assessment and
The regulator, whoever's the regulator for the firm that you've chosen. Whether it's banking, security, insurance, money lending. It depends on where you work.
Sacha, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Assuming that if someone doesn't work to any of those, what approach should that person take?
You're gonna have to write on one. And you're gonna have to work along with someone who works in that industry.
Okay, thank you.
So for you, it's even harder because you have to start writing from tonight. Because you're gonna have to ask a lot of questions and you're gonna have a lot of gaps because you don't work in a regulated firm. Do you know anyone that works in a bank or insurance company or securities business or lending business?
I think I do.
Okay, all right. So you could use that as your starting point.
Okay.
We'll begin first by looking on the internet at the central banks or the Securities Commission website to get the latest report on the national risk assessment.
Sorry, that was noise in my background. Can you say how we get the national risk assessment again, please?
It's on the central bank website.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. And of course, you have to read recommendation 1. Now, normally they give a question on chapter 7, which is risk assessment. I'm surprised they didn't do that this time. They normally would ask you about risk assessment. But in most firms, that's already being automated. All right.
Hi, sorry, Ms. Archer. I wanted to ask you, when we're doing the outline for A1, you said we need to identify the firm at that, when answering that question, or that's for number 2? Because I thought number A1 focused on the country. So it'll be like what the country did, the NRA.
Yeah, the country and the regulator. So if you're talking about the regulator, you have to know which firm. You're not gonna mention the firm, but the regulator will tie in because A1 and A2 are connected.
Okay.
So you don't want to do A1 and talk about securities, and A2 you're talking about banking.
No. Okay,
Right.
so from A1, you should narrow down to the regulator. Okay,
Right.
thanks.
Okay. Anyone else with questions?
Ms. Archer,
Yes.
say the regulator you choose to use, for example, is the central bank. Could you also use them as the firm that you refer to, or would it have to be another bank?
No, we can't be the firm.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What was the question, Brittany?
She asked if the regulator and the firm can be one and the same.
Okay.
No. Ebony, you have a question?
No, ma'am.
Oh,
I
okay.
just didn't hear her question.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Archer, do you think for question A1, we need to, I mean, at this level, you think we need to discuss what is a risk-based assessment? I mean, a risk-based approach, sorry? You think we
In
need to set
A1?
Yeah, you think we need to mention what it is before we get into discussing the benefits and charges?
I think if anything, you would get into what recommendation 1 is, eh?
Yeah, you have to read recommendation 1 and tie it in the national risk assessment and then into the risk-based approach. That's what I'm saying. You don't know how to lay it out until you start to write.
I think what she was asking, I think she wanted to ask if she should mention what the risk-based approach is. But my thinking is maybe you should mention what recommendation 1 is. I think that was a question.
No.
Right. Recommendation 1 will address what is the risk-based approach.
Correct.
Right. They don't like definitions.
Oh, okay.
So-
I mean, I was ever thinking recommendation 1. I was just thinking like later on down, like they still need to go back and say what it actually is.
You can say what it is, but say it without stating it as a definition.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. See, everything comes to your style of writing. That's how it works. I see Sanders is up. All right. So no more questions?
Nothing else.
Okay. So next week we'll be ready to work, since some people thought there was no class tonight.
Just do it to me. Okay, that's me. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So 6:30 next week, Thursday, and be prepared.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right, take care.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
You all be safe.
Okay.
Be
Yes,
safe.
be safe.